sarcasm. The fun part is just right.
Call things to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilman Duper.
Present.
Councilman Daly.
Here.
Councilman Leonard. Mayor Pro Tempore Popescu.
Here.
And Mayor Rigsby.
Here.
All present.
He broke the tie.
Thank you. We will begin with the invocation and pledge of allegiance led by our Mayor Pro Tem Popescu. Please rise.
Let us bow our heads. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to live in this amazing country, this wonderful state, and amazing city. We ask that you be with us tonight as we make decisions which serve the interest of our residents and constituents and all those who deal with our city of Loma Linda. We ask for your blessing and guidance so we may make the right decisions. In Jesus' name, amen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any items to be added or deleted?
No, sir. But I would like to introduce City of Colton Fire Chief Tim McCart. Our Fire Chief Jeff Bender is out of town tonight, and so Tim just be here representing our fire department too. So,
Welcome again. We're at the part of the agenda where public can participate and have 3-minute comments on any items not on the agenda. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in that capacity? I have one written request to speak, but it's on an item in the agenda. Maybe it's not. Nope, looks like it's a general comment. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you,
Jim Schiff.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Just wanted to invite you to the Historical Commission's annual event. This is our 9th annual Loma Linda History Fair. You all have a flyer for that. It's Sunday afternoon, this coming weekend at the Loma Linda Senior Center. It's a free event. We are still giving away books to people who come, free books and prizes for children. There's a lot of interesting displays, and there will be some new things this year that have never been seen before. So please come out, invite your family and friends. There's a lot of kid-friendly stuff going on, and it'll be a good time. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Then we'll close the public comment. Our agenda items. We've been waiting for this opportunity for item number 1 to honor Rob Rice, our long-serving fire battalion chief who has retired and probably is heading into another phase of his career. Or are you just lazing around like most retired people?
Right now, just staying busy, but not gainfully employed yet.
Well, good for you. Take advantage of it. Have fun. We have some things to honor you. We have a plaque, if you could come forward. And it's the symbol of the city of Loma Linda, and it says, Robert Rice, Fire Battalion Chief, congratulations upon the occasion of your retirement. You served with us from 1986 to 2013. That adds up to a long time. 27 years. So we thank you for that, and because you served so long, we have our traditional gift of the City of Loma Linda lamp with your name inscribed and the same information about your service. And thank you very much for that. Do you have any comments?
No problem. Thank you very much. I just wanted to say thank you, Mayor, Council, JARB, Chiefs. It was an honor to serve. It was a pleasure to serve the citizens of Loma Linda, the surrounding communities, and our institutions. It was an amazing experience. I definitely missed the excitement and several other guys. I made some lifelong friends here. It was just an amazing opportunity that I appreciate very, very much. So thank you for the opportunity.
We appreciated your service too. You were a regular face of the department in the community as well as in the council chambers, and we really appreciate that. You're a great ambassador. So come forward.
No problem.
Congratulations. Rob.
Always bittersweet moments when someone is celebrated because they're leaving. It's kind of a, are you happy or sad? It's both.
It's a good-looking lamp. How long do you have to work here to get one of those?
Longer than you've been here.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
And if you've been here as long as Pam, she gets a rocking chair and a lamp.
Yeah.
Yeah. But knowing Pam, she won't leave until we give her a gurney. Okay, item number 2. Another exciting waypoint in our city's history. Our children's hospital, believe it or not, is 20 years old. And we have a proclamation to celebrate that. And those of you who were, thank you for coming forward. We have Kelly Jackson. Yes. Who is the Director of Marketing for the Children's Hospital, who will receive this proclamation. And for those of you who were listening on Sunday night, there was a little bit of what people thought was gunfire coming from the hills, which was just the reflection of the sound coming from the Children's Hospital, nice fireworks display. And I understand there was not complete legality of those fireworks, so no.
You
can't celebrate for another 30 years. You can do the 50th. Okay.
Promise.
So, but we really we're celebrating along with you. The proclamation is honoring Loma Linda University Children's Hospital on celebration of its 20th anniversary. It has the usual list of whereases, and our biggest problem was coming up with a very short list that would fit on one page. The Children's Hospital has accomplished so much over the years. First opens its doors in November of '93, so this very month is 20 years. They treat 160,000 children every year. They have over 100 pediatricians, surgeons, and subspecialists, over 275 beds just for kids, and it's a part of the University Medical Center's Level 1 Trauma Center. So I declare this celebration and congratulations on the 20th anniversary, and wish you great success for the future.
Thank you.
Every time I go to Costco and they're raising money for Children's Hospital of L.A., I just wince. We've got more local concern. Okay, item number 3, we have special counsel here for Council Bill R-2013-04, authorizing a loan agreement and issuance of bonds for a refinance bond issue for the medical center. And yes, I and Councilman Popescu, by previous arrangement, are abstaining, and the other members have drawn straws and therefore eliminated their conflict of interest, and we will leave. And who's the most senior member left? That would be, how about the gray-haired gentleman to my left?
Sounds more like who's the oldest. Okay, sir.
Okay,
Tell
let
us what
me
we need to
get through this. What is in front of you is a resolution authorizing refinancing, reissuance of bonds, Series 2000B2 and Series 2008B. One was in the original amount of $40 million, one was $25 million, and now in an aggregate of $65 million. There's what is, for tax purposes, a reissuance of the bonds. This is a conduit financing where the Loma Linda University Medical Center will be liable for the payments. The city and its general fund are in no way liable. The bonds will be purchased by Bank of America. There will be very severe limitations on their ability to transfer the bonds. The exact nature of the scope of the transferability is still being negotiated between the bank and the medical center, but it will be restricted. Currently, the indenture is structured that there will be one bond held by one investor, even if it transfers. The structure is a bond issue. The medical center and the bank had discussed some months ago the possibility of recasting the transactions as a loan. They're back to the bond structure, so these bonds have different pricing mechanisms. There's a lot of flexibility the medical center is retaining, so they can go long, weekly, or monthly and have the bonds priced accordingly. There's no official statement because they're being privately placed with Bank of America. This is something of a plus in that it limits the both the work and potential exposure, not to overstate it, in terms of having to address the credit markets with an official statement. So that's a benefit of a private placement. The resolution refers to 2 indentures and 2 loan agreements that are on file with the city clerk. Also on file with the city clerk is what's called a continuing covenant agreement, which is a matter relating the relationship between Bank of America and the Loma Linda University Medical Center. This is continuing to be negotiated, but in speaking with representatives of the bank and of the medical center, their legal representatives, the issues there seem limited, and the nature of the issues is they're not a matter of concern to the city. The resolution in front of you would authorize the issuance of the bonds, and it builds into it some flexibility that certain edits can be made if they're within certain parameters. So it allows and facilitates the ability of the hospital and the bank to wrap up any remaining issues they have. There was an issuer's fee, which the city manager discussed several months ago with a representative of the Med Center. That's the extent of my comments. I'd be happy to respond to any questions, and there is a representative of the medical center here tonight if you wish them to speak.
Questions?
Okay.
I think we have questions, so if you want to stay up here, Mark, for a minute.
No, I'm pretty clear on this. We've been
Okay.
through it before. So.
I read through this rather impressive legal document, and actually more than once, and I still need help. Can you help me understand in layman's terms what are the benefits and risks to the medical center in doing this? What are the benefits and risks to the city in being involved with this? And that can either be from you or medical center, whoever wants to address that.
I'd be happy to speak to the medical center component as you would speak to the city component.
In terms of the benefit to the city, I'd say because it's a conduit issuance, the main benefit is accommodating an important corporate citizen, and a secondary benefit will be the issuer's fee. In terms of any downsides or liabilities, it's a conduit issue. The city isn't liable, and there isn't an ongoing disclosure duties associated with an official statement. Were there a public offering, really the lion's share of those obligations would be on the medical center in any event. But on a conduit issue such as this, with a sophisticated investor that's going to hold his one bond, I see the city's liabilities as extremely minor and unlikely to occur, to manifest themselves in any problems. And the upside is, as I said, mainly accommodating a corporate citizen, and an ancillary benefit is the issuer's fee.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Steve Moore. I'm the Chief Financial Officer of Loma Linda University Medical Center. First thing I'd like to do is just thank the city council, and staff for the work that's been done in terms of reviewing and taking under submission our request to utilize the city as a conduit for this refinance. Currently, the way the bonds are set up is that they're variable rate demand bonds, which are remarketed every other week, biweekly. They're backed by letters of credit from Bank of America, and as such, we have certain market risk. Risk in so much as if there were a significant change within the market, as we had in 2008, 2009, we might see a scenario where those bonds would not be remarketed, would be basically put back to Bank of America under their line of credit or letter of credit, and then the medical center would be asked to either find additional financing at any point in time or come up with the cash to reimburse on that letter of credit. As such, we're taking a certain amount of risk off the table at this point in time because we're not taking on the risk of the vagaries of the market. And in addition to that, we're not taking on any risk as it relates to Bank of America's letter of credit as well, which if that letter of credit were to be downgraded in terms of its credit rating, et cetera, we could be looking at higher costs and or, again, a possibility of a failed remarketing. As such, by going to a direct loan from Bank of America for a 3-year term, it fixes our cost for that period of time, takes the risk off the table of that biweekly remarketing and or the letter of credit risk, and allows us to look at the possibility of renewal with Bank of America on an ongoing basis that, again, gives us some level of significant stability. The financial impact is not significant to the medical center, but there is a small reduction in the overall cost, which is positive, yet the larger component is, again, that stability that this change really provides us.
Is there a reason that the bonds were not originally set up as a conduit issue like this that would provide the flexibility and reduced risk that you're describing?
That's a great question. Back when the medical center initially issued these variable rate demand bonds, there was not significant desire in the market for the product of direct lending from banks on a tax-exempt basis. That has really evolved over the last couple of years into a very significant opportunity for organizations like ourselves, as well as a positive for the banks. A lot of that has to do with changes in bank and market regulations, which has allowed them to take advantage of this type of direct tax-exempt loan in a way that they were not able to previously. So really it was a matter of looking at the products that were available to Loma Linda University Medical Center at the time, trying to make that best choice on behalf of the medical center, and then now that there are other options in the market, trying to continue to evolve in our view of how we market our debt and make the best choices on a go-forward basis.
Good answer. Thank you. Are there other questions of Mr. Moore?
Yes. And when we talked about this earlier in the year, we negotiated down the fee, right? Correct? Do you remember what we got to?
It's been a while ago since we actually negotiated. $50,000, I believe, is the actual fee for the refinance. Hopefully that is a benefit to the city, as well as obviously are getting a benefit for that as well.
And this is being recommended by the staff?
Yes, sir.
Okay, if there are no other questions, Madam Clerk, are we going to vote on this tonight? So in that case, we would need a motion. I will make a motion. Let me get the correct council bill. I make a motion that we adopt Council Bill R-2013-04.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Congratulations. I think you got your new fancy bonds all in place now.
Thank you very much.
Good job. Thank you. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I do.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, it's all yours, yes.
The other gray-haired gentleman.
Responsibility has overcome me at this point, so.
Okay. So, item number 4, public hearing. Appeal of Planning Commission decision to declare that a public nuisance exists on Redlands Boulevard. Community development, please.
And one more gray-haired guy, huh? Okay. The Planning Commission on July 17th of 2013 heard testimony and information regarding the 3 properties on Redlands Boulevard, 24800, 24816, and 24818. They're all 3 contiguous lots on Redlands Boulevard. One is an existing non-conforming residence, one is an existing use as a commercial bookstore, and the other has 2 buildings currently not in use or in occupancy. In 2012, the annual spring weed abatement inspections identified the properties as having numerous fire code and vegetation-related violations. A follow-up inspection on or about August 22, 2012, identified the properties having multiple fire code, health, safety code, zoning, and nuisance violations. Between August 22nd and April 3rd, city staff attempted to work with the property owner to come to resolution and find remediation for the issues on the property. On April 1st, the fire department issued a notice to clean the property, and on April 3rd, a notice of violation from the code enforcement side was sent to the property owner, listing the violations and requesting compliance with the municipal code. May 29th, a reinspection was arranged for the property owner after he had said he had done some remediation on trees and ground cover. There was some, at that point, there was some work done on the property as far as a remediation of trees, ground cover, a mulch was placed in areas along in the property. Staff requested a reinspection on May 29th of 2013. Were denied access to the property. July 2nd, we scheduled a reinspection. Once again, had limited access to the property and were unable to come to an agreement on to what actions should be taken. So on July 17th, a nuisance hearing was held in front of the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission found and I believe the Planning Commission report is in front of you, a laundry list of nuisances, trash and debris, dilapidated structure, overgrown vegetation, possibly inoperative vehicles, unsafe wiring. It kind of goes on and on. With a performance dates for these nuisances of August 26th to have the vegetation issues resolved, September 30th to have obtained building permits and the outstanding building issues, and November 4th relating to outdoor storage, which we later identified a cooperative agreement dating back to 1993 with a property owner that eliminated the issue regarding outdoor storage. According to this agreement, he is allowed to have outdoor storage of materials on the property. And then a February 3rd, 2014 date to resolve the issue regarding the dilapidated and damaged structures. Since that time, the property owner has worked with the city in a fairly cooperative manner. He has, and I believe you also have the list of the outstanding violations and what he has addressed, kind of struck through, and some notes on what continues to be. He has identified the electrical issues in the bookstore, got building permits, resolved those.
We've resolved the issue regarding the potentially inoperative vehicles. He's done repairs to the far west building where the vehicle damage was done to the building, has brought engineering reports that show that the building is structurally sound. That building is really a tough spot as far as graffiti, and the property owner has really tried to stay on top of the graffiti issue there, too. It's kind of a nice blank white wall just begging to be painted on, and he's been very responsible about that. There still are open issues about the central building, some fairly substantial structural questions remain: footings, foundations, the integrity of the roof. There's open issues regarding some of the electrical services, meters and boxes that are going to require some reinspection on site. The property owner has agreed to allow staff on site to look at those electrical issues and to work with them on that center building on identifying the structural issues. And then there are some pretty fundamental differences of opinion on the vegetation and what constitutes landscaping versus nuisance plants and how those are addressed. Staff is working with the property owner on coming to resolution on those, either hiring a property owner, identifying or hiring a horticulturalist, possibly somebody that somebody identifies what plant life relative to fire risks, and to come to some resolution with that. Anyway, with that said, there has been some progress on the part of the property owner with staff. There's also been a more openness and willingness to engage staff to bring to resolution the remaining issues on the property. And staff has been approached by a representative for the property owner who is requesting that the item be continued for 30 days while we work out continued cooperation and resolution on these issues. The goal is, and the understanding, that obviously the resolution will remediation will not happen in 30 days, but so that we can continue on this process, that we continue this appeal and continue this hearing on a recurrent basis with reports to the council on our progress. Should that break down on either side, then we can open the door and continue with the appeal and the nuisance abatement.
Is that your recommendation?
Yes. Is there the applicant, anything you want to mention, speak?
I think in addition, we probably should open the public hearing at some point after you've made your comment. Because it was advertised for a public hearing, should we continue that?
Yes, since it was listed as a public hearing, if there's anybody from the audience who wished to speak on that, you could entertain that. However, they could be encouraged to return at the future date when the hearing will actually take place.
Okay. So go ahead with your comment, and then I'll open the public hearing.
I will, if I may, defer my comments until we have your decision on if we may have a continuance, because if you're amenable to that and agree with staff's recommendation, the only thing I was going to say at this point is that I'm appreciative, especially of staff and of Mr. Bolowich's efforts to negotiate this in good faith. And I also want to speak very forcibly, because this is not a contest of equals. We are duly impressed with the legal power that is vested in cities to make some decisions about properties like this. It's not completely unbridled, and this is a very complex area of the law, as I have subsequently learned. But the city has a lot of power. So by choosing to exercise it as a good faith negotiation, it is by far the most economical the most fair and the most efficient way to get the things which the city wants in this process, and also to protect the interests of the property owner as an upstanding and cooperative citizen, a very long-term citizen of the city. So I await your decision before needing to say anything.
I make a motion to continue this item.
We're going to do a minor public hearing. So I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone pursuant to the announcement of today's public hearing who would like to make a comment? I believe we will be opening comment at the next date certain if it's put off for a month. So we would continue the public hearing?
Yes, we'd continue the entire item in the public hearing to the next scheduled meeting, which would be December 10th.
Okay. So I don't see any comments, so I'll close the public hearing for now until we meet next time. And what is the pleasure of the council?
Same motion.
Second.
Was that to December 10?
Yes, December 10th at 7 p.m. be a Tuesday council meeting.
So it's before the prayer?
I think we'll do it after the prayer.
Okay.
I have a comment. I'm not sure if Mr. Lubinsky wants to say anything about this. I have to tell you, and I like you as an individual. We've had some interesting conversations on the street, but I'm disappointed that we have a problem here that has been evolving since, by my read, 1992, and granted it's become more acute more recently. Would I be, if you're willing to respond, what's going to happen between, so this is a long-standing dilemma between you and the city. What's going to happen between now and December 10? What is a 30-day continuance going to do to resolve this? And I assume you're Mr. Levinsky's lawyer?
I am.
Okay. So you're speaking on his behalf.
No, I am speaking on his behalf. Thank
Okay.
you. Well, first let me address that the appearance of this as a long-standing dilemma is probably greater than its substance. What you had was an agreement between Mr. Lubinsky and the city, and the record of that agreement somehow got lost in the annals of time, but it was relocated, and that agreement showed that there were many of the things that the city objected to that were permitted all along. So that was one fundamental reason why Mr. Lubinsky didn't respond in total to all of those concerns. And Mr. Lubinsky can speak to this in more detail than can I, undertook substantial expense and actions in furtherance of that agreement. So let me speak in more global terms. We have a specific list of items that came out of the hearing and the notice to abate. And when you look closely one by one at those items, that list really gets winnowed down. And I'm really appreciative of staff undertaking that close look at that with us. What really remains at this time are only some open questions about the condition of this one building, and those conditions are going to be addressed when the city has its inspection of that, and we continue the dialogue about what to do to bring that to a standard that, well, I don't want to go into more detail, but that one's going to be handled.
Not to interrupt you, but
sure.
So outside of the issues with the one particular building you're making reference to, the junk will be gone, the weeds will be gone, it'll basically be cleaned up.
We will have an inspection by the representatives of the city. As Mr. Bolowich mentioned, there will be neutral experts that are able to lend some expertise, and what our goal is in that is to come to the right balance between the property owner maintaining his horticultural interests, and I don't know, I'm not being facetious. There are plants there that may provide natural fire break, that may provide fire retardants, that may be deciduous, and that to first glance or inspection of lay persons, may not be as they appear. So what we're seeking is some kind of balance between the cleanup, as you say, and things that are clearly and indisputably things that can be remediated, removed, cleaned up, but other things that may shade into the realm of taste and preference, that if they can be shown to be safe and acceptable, then they should be allowed to remain.
Well, and I think presentable should be included in that as well. I mean, this I'll tell you, I mean, you're very eloquent in how you describe all of this. It reminds me, though, when I still had children at home, and my son didn't know, he would go through cycles of not taking care of his room, and it looked like a tornado went through, and when I went in, he sounded a lot like what you're describing. Well, that shirt's there just since yesterday because, I was in a hurry, and those trousers I don't usually, and I mean, all we want is a safe and attractive city, and I don't think any councilman up here is going to back away from that. And so I hope that we can begin to make this, we can do this collaboratively to achieve that outcome and not be dickering too much over small details. I mean, in my mind, that's what a good citizen would want to do. And if there's something I'm missing here, then so be it. But ultimately, we want the place cleaned up so it looks presentable with the city. It's in a prominent part of the city. It needs to be cleaned up. That's the bottom line, and safe. And I think that, I'm willing to support the motion out of it in a spirit of benevolence. But I also am a little frustrated that, look at how thick this packet of history and documentation is. This has been going on for a while, and it's time to get it resolved. So if that's what the continuation will enable us to do, is to work collaboratively to achieve that kind of an outcome that meets the city standards, then I think we're on the same side.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No question whatsoever regarding safety. And if you grant this continuance, and if you have trust in your staff, and if you have trust in the fact that it is of keen and mutual interest for my client to end this, what's the right word for it? It's not enmity, but uncomfortable relationship with the city, of which my client has been a resident since before it was a city, that he is indeed interested in reaching a point of mutual acceptance. I will express, if I said, yes, I sign a blank check for this, I'm not prepared to do that only because the second factor, which was attractive, there's still a range of some discretion and taste and judgment in that second term. I understand the legalities of a city exercising its police power and its rights to worry about the health and welfare of its citizenry to set some standards. As I indicated before, it's not a completely unbridled power, but based on the open discussion and the forbearance and the suggestions also of Mr. Bolowich to engage a third party and to listen objectively to that, I think we'll reach satisfaction. I also think just the fact that Mr. Lubinsky has shown the willingness that he has to entertain discussion about now the vegetation being the primary issue, now that so many of those other large and looming misunderstandings and potential threats have been resolved, it's easier for him to look at those and to believe that the city is an honest broker in this. So we definitely are not in a mode of trying to oppose. I think we have the same goal. And let's give that month to try to work the details. There's some safety for both sides in the fact that we'll come back.
And I'm willing to do that. And I trust the staff. I trust you and Mr. Lewinsky. But to quote one of the mayor's heroes, Ronald Reagan, I think it was, that said, trust but verify. I'm going to drive past there a few times myself before December 10th.
I understand.
I was just going to suggest that.
If I may, one item to clarify, Councilman Daley. The outdoor storage of materials there, the 1993 cooperation agreement does allow Mr. Levinsky to continue storing those materials on site. It required some screening along the off-ramp, which was removed as part of the interchange upgrade. I believe Sandbag is replanting some of those trees. Mr. Lubinsky said he's willing to work on planting some of those as well to get that vegetation screening back up. But the agreement of 1993 does allow him to store those materials on site.
What kind of materials?
There's some old plumbing materials, equipment, lumber, windows.
Out in the open?
It is out, well, that's not fair. He's built some storage sheds,
Okay.
he kind of has, but it is visible from the freeway since his screening was removed.
Okay.
And it is under that agreement. And if there's an issue, ultimately, if there's an issue with that, then we need to revisit that agreement. But we've taken all that off because the 93 agreement did allow that.
Well, it's appropriate we abide by our agreements, obviously. Okay, thank you for that clarification.
I was just going to, go ahead. Just a general comment. I want to thank the staff and all parties involved for actually working towards resolving this issue as much as possible. Hopefully that by the time we get back again in 30 days, there'll be less things to discuss. I didn't look at the staff report, and I was pleasantly surprised to see there was progress being made. And in fact, it's interesting because I mentioned to someone that I was having to deal with this hearing, and someone said, yeah, I saw a lot of people working on that property in the last few days. So there's definitely been some significant effort in making, has been made in trying to clean up the place, and we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Is there any opposition? Hearing none, it's approved. We have a continuance.
Thank you.
See you all next month. Next is our consent calendar. What's the pleasure?
I'll move it.
Second.
Question regarding item number 11.
Yes.
And I have a
We,
question. Go ahead.
from looking at the staff report, looks like we are appropriating $41,000 to do a study.
Yes, to
Am I-
update our, the next study for the development impact fee.
Okay, so this is not something that we've done in the past. This is just
Something we did 5 years ago.
I
And this
see.
is a requirement to update it every 5.
Yes, it's required to have these studies done so that whenever we collect any development impact fees, that there's a nexus between the fee and the need for the service, and that the fee is reasonable. So that does have to be updated periodically to comply with AB 1600.
And where would the money come for this?
It's general fund.
And we had anticipated this cost and had put it in a budget for this amount?
No, that's why I asked for to appropriate some money from the reserve to pay for this. And there's also sewer, a little bit from sewer and water also. Because we look at every fees and storm drain and so.
Do you know offhand what it cost us 5 years ago?
About the same, as a matter of fact. I argue about that fee, and he gave me a good answer for it. And this is less than the cost of living adjustment this past 5 years.
And this is a significant amount of money. When we went ahead and decided who's going to do the Nexus study, did you go through a process of?
Yes, we did. 5 years ago, we did. We sent out a request for proposal.
5 years ago?
Yes, yes.
But what about like recently?
No, because I decided we could just use the old firms, the firm, and they just update the study instead of redo the whole new study. This is only 5 years ago, so a lot of project that was listed 5 years ago, we completed some, and we have some more that we want to add to the list.
And who's the firm that's doing it?
Is the revenue cost specialist, Scott. What's Scott's last name? Thorps.
Okay, and we are assured that by just simply choosing them again, we are getting the best possible deal?
Yes, if not, it will cost more. You have to study the next study from scratch.
And you're comfortable with just being able to decide that without actually going through a bidding process on this?
Yes. Okay.
Jarb did try to negotiate the contract down.
I did. I'm a cheapskate.
That's why we love you.
And part of the whole study, too, is they do a facility master kind of plan, so they identify all the infrastructure and build out, basically, that the city will need, and that portion of the study then gets used to come up with the actual fees.
Okay. Thank you.
Does this help make our fee schedule defendable?
Yes, definitely, because all of this fee, we have to submit it to BIA, Building
Industry Association.
Industry Association, and they will really take a look at this and dissect, make sure that our fee is not too high.
We will actually have to go through a public hearing process before we adopt the fees, and they can come and protest or, yeah.
If we're finished with this one, I have a question on 9C.
Okay, I think we've finished with 11. Now you have a question on 9C? Go ahead.
9C, streetlights.
Yes.
We're adding more streetlights.
Yes, no, we're not adding.
We're replacing streetlights.
Correct. We have a knockdown. We have, as a matter of fact, last night we just have another one. Somebody hit the street light pole on Barton Road. So instead of 11 that's on the bid, now we have to add one more. It'll be 12. And what happened is when somebody knocked down our street light, we went through the process. We get the money from the insurance company, and we put that money that we collect back to the street light assessment district.
So this isn't part of the process of changing to...
No, sir. No, this is just replacing the knockdown street light.
And then we'll recover that from the insurance company?
Yes, we already collect all of that, yes.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Subrogation.
Sounds fair enough.
And then we have to add one more, because somebody hit it another one last night.
Okay. At least our poles are not made of metal, and then they would take the whole thing. Put up copper poles. Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the consent calendar. Is there any other discussion? Is there any opposition? Hearing none, it's approved. Item number 12, appointment of one member to the Planning Commission. I believe we have 2 applications. Are they here? Is Rania Elbana here?
Did contact her. We can confirm it.
And Ryan Gallant is here.
This is for the Planning Commission?
Planning Commission.
Who resigned?
Fred Khosrowbadi.
Oh.
He was too busy in Orange County and...
Oh, he's busy managing the I-10 Tippecanoe interchange for us.
Okay, so he's
Sandbag.
busy and for whatever reason couldn't continue. So we have 2 applications. We have just the written application of Rania Elbana, and we have the written application and attendance of Ryan Gallant. Do you have any questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I'd like to hear from him. Why he wants to take this responsibility on and what his qualifications are.
Okay, Ryan, come forward. Present yourself for cross-examination.
Thank you. My name's Ryan Gallant. I've lived in the city for most of my life. I recently graduated from law school, and I felt that the opening on the Planning Commission would be a good way for me to kind of give back to the city that I've lived in my whole life. Have you
have done any work in working in cities or being involved in city functions prior to the Planning Commission? Have you done anything?
No.
Okay. Have you actively been involved in anything for the city of Loma Linda?
I believe Ryan was part of Save Loma Linda. Is that correct?
Would that
Okay,
be
yeah.
considered? Yeah, yes,
Okay.
and I haven't.
And how did you feel about their efforts and what they were trying to achieve?
I felt that they had it was a good thing for the city, the limited development of certain buildings and preserving the unique feel of the city is an important objective.
Thank you.
So would you consider yourself to be, therefore, under the rubric of slow growth, or what, smart growth, or what? How would you?
I think there's a balanced approach that you can take between growth that would be slow growth would be championed by some people, and growth that takes into account businesses and residents of the opinions of others. Sorry. Balance is a key. Balancing interest of business, community, and individuals.
What do you perceive the role of the Planning Commission to be?
Advising and advising the City Council here, as well as some administrative procedures.
So when you indicate two of the cities that you admire, and you indicate why, and that's Riverside and Redlands, as a member of the Planning Commission, what do you feel you could do to help incorporate some of the things that you like about Riverside and Redlands?
What I like about those cities is they have a bit unique identities. And I feel that being on the Planning Commission is an opportunity to allow Loma Linda to enhance and preserve some of its unique attributes.
Do you have specific ideas of what you'd like to see us begin to explore in terms of planning the city?
I'm not familiar with what's currently in development,
Sure.
so I would have to look.
Okay. Some of us like bicycle trails and walking pathways and beautification and all that kind of stuff.
And health and open spaces is a very important part of what makes Loma Linda unique.
Okay.
I want to help him out a little bit, because it can be kind of daunting to be standing up here, right, and
Yes.
in front of everybody.
Yes.
But you talked about your vision for the next 10 years would be for a city to have a sustainable local economy that meets the needs of the citizens of the city while maintaining attributes that contribute to Loma Linda's feeling of a small, unique community. Further, I'd like to see the open spaces in the hills preserved as much as possible, and for Loma Linda to remain a city of quality.
Of course.
That pretty much sum it up?
Yes.
That's from a guy that's packing a gun most of the time. So you're talking about intimidation.
Eloquently wrote it down.
Yeah, I know.
I
read
think
it. I wanted to hear it.
If he had it in front of him, he would have been able to articulate it as well as you write. It's always easier to write something than to actually verbally express
It's
it.
tough to be put on the spot, right?
It is very, I must say.
This would be good
Yeah, but
practice if you're a lawyer.
liar. You should be fighting
yes.
right back. Okay. Appreciate you showing up and that you're motivated to be part of the city that you live in, and I have a lot of respect for you in doing that.
Thank you.
The other applicant, for example, said in 10 years, develop new parks, schools, upscale homes, and new small businesses. You talked about balance. What would you see in you said businesses and open space. What would you see as being something that's missing in Loma Linda that we need more of?
That's kind of a difficult question because it depends on where you put these new businesses. Oftentimes where residents of Loma Linda are somewhat dependent on other local cities or just kind of their everyday shopping. And is that appropriate? Is, say, putting a Walmart in Loma Linda appropriate? Possibly not. But depending on the area and depending on the specifics, I believe that it's possible to bring an approved business for Loma Linda that that's a fit for the city, and that enhances the livability of the city and allows us to kind of remain. I'm missing a word here.
Special?
Remain special and remain someplace where we can live well.
How about housing? One of the beliefs of some people who are no growth is we have enough homes, go away. Slow growth is defined in 100 different ways. Smart growth is a euphemism for slow growth that's posited by people who claim to be smarter than other people. So how would you define the needs for housing?
The needs for housing?
Yes. Any experience with that? When I talk to the real estate people, they tell me we need this. When I talk to some people, they say we don't need any of that. What's your feeling?
Well, my feeling there would be to listen to both sides of that particular argument and balance specifically the specifics of where they believe housing is needed, how much housing is needed, the impact of the housing and how that affects the greater community. I prefer to look at these sorts of things on an individual basis.
Do you have an overall feeling, for example, that we don't have enough igloos?
No.
Or, we don't have enough hovels, or you think we don't have enough mansions, or we don't have enough high-end housing or intermediate housing? Because everybody's got opinions on those things.
Well, mansions sure are beautiful, but depending on where this is put in Loma Linda, depending on the impact of the traffic for each of those types of developments, I think it's a different question. I don't think that there doesn't seem to be a burning need for more housing development, for instance. But in the right context, it could be appropriate.
Okay, so you're concerned about externalities.
Yes.
Okay. That shows a degree of maturity beyond your years.
Thank you.
I would like to know who you look up to and who you take guidance from that you think is very much aware of the direction of the city and where the city's been, where it's going, and who you admire.
Oh, you're all special. You know that.
I was actually looking for you to say your father, but your parents do have quite a bit of history and knowledge of the way the city works. Yes. And how do you feel about their views?
I think they're often right about these things. I would have some disagreements with them from time to time, but I think that the work they've done in the past has been beneficial to the city.
You're a brave man to come face this group, so congratulations.
Thank you.
Probably if any of us had had to do what you're doing, we'd have never made it up here in the first place. But no, I appreciate your initiative in applying for this, and it demonstrates a level of civic responsibility that we wish we saw in a lot of other people too. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions of this applicant? If not, I would ask, have we had enough information from the other applicant to make a decision? What's your
my thought on that is we actually discussed this at the last meeting. We were looking for that applicant to be here. He or she wasn't there, and I'm not sure if this is it's she. She wasn't here, and my understanding and talking to the city manager is we did reach out to her and ask her to be a part of this meeting tonight. And again, she's not here. She is very well pedigreed by her application. My only concern is that she has not appeared in front of us. So I'm ready to make a recommendation.
Okay.
I would move that that we appoint Mr. Ryan Gallant to her vacant position on the Planning Council.
I'll second that.
Okay. Is there any discussion about that motion? Is there any opposition? Seeing none? Suit up.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
When is the
It'll be a
next
good
planning commission
experience.
meeting?
7 p.m., first Wednesday of the month.
Okay,
We'll
so
be
you'll
sitting
have,
right where Councilman Duper's at.
so it'll be in first weekend in December?
The first,
Okay.
It's always the first Wednesday of the
Okay.
month.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
good job.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 13, Council Bill O-2013-04, first reading, setting the public hearing and second reading for the next meeting, amending the building code. Community Development Building, we have Ron Espelin here to explain.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Ron Espelin, serving as your building official. And I might add that I have been serving the City of Loma Linda in this capacity since 1985. So I'm familiar with the city for long term. What we have before you is every 3 years, the state's health and safety code requires that the California Building Standards Commission adopt and publish the California Building Standards Codes, and they're contained in Title 24. And the codes that are affected, that we're looking to adopt for this cycle, are the California Building Code, California Residential Code, the California Green Building Standards Code, the 2013 edition, the 2013 editions of the California Plumbing, Mechanical, and Electrical Codes, and the 2012 International Property Maintenance Code. So for our recommendation, we recommend that you introduce Council Bill O-2013-4 and set for a public hearing and the second reading at the Council's December 10th meeting. And I'll be here. I can answer questions if you have any questions on the item.
Are there any highlighted changes to the code that we're adopting?
The changes that we have are rather minor, and they're the same as we did 3 years ago. We tend not to make exceptions to the published codes. We prefer to stay with the codes that were adopted by the state. Every year we go through a process of nationally to review proposed changes to the codes and become familiar with different aspects of the regulations that are being presented. So when the California Building Standards Code Commission publishes and adopts those codes that we have been looking at for the previous 3 years, we tend not to make very many exceptions. We have some here that were requested by the fire department for the location of fire sprinklers and some other things that we've done traditionally over the years.
So the updated codes are very minor in there.
They're minor with respect to the changes that we make here locally. Some cycles, like the last cycle, 3 years ago, we introduced 2 new codes. The California Residential Code was a new code that we adopted 3 years ago, and we're going to re-adopt it this year. And also the Green Building Standards Code was also a new code that was introduced 3 years ago that we're reintroducing this year for adoption. Yeah. So some of the changes in the building code, the more significant ones that we've noticed is in the accessibility standards, Chapter 11. It was rewritten this cycle so that it mirrors more closely with the federal ADA standards, so that the California standards and the national standards are closer in compliance with each other. And we see that as a benefit in having the overall regulations for accessibility be uniform throughout the country, including California.
Okay, so the appropriate motion
No motion.
would be to do the first reading and set the public hearing. Is there a motion for this, or just, yes?
Oh, there
because
is.
I've been through this for 8 years, and I still don't know how to do it, so.
Yeah, well, obviously I don't.
Well, yes, Mr. Mayor, it is a little confusing because typically we do the public hearing at the first meeting. The adoption of these standard codes, there's a procedure and it reverses that. So tonight you're simply introducing it and setting the public hearing.
So the appropriate motion would be what it says in the agenda item.
Correct.
I'll go ahead and move Council Bill 0-2013-04. It's actually O.
First reading.
First reading set for public hearing, and second reading for December the 10th, amending and adopting the building code, compromise the following codes. And they're listed as A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
Second that.
Okay. Any discussion, any opposition? Hearing none, it's approved. Thank you very much, Mr. Espelin. Next, we have the California Fire Code, and Mr. Gray.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. I'm going to dovetail in on Mr. Espelin explained to you. I'm going to try to give you the information to complete your code adoption process in the last two codes that I deal with, and that's the California Fire Code and the Urban Wildland Interface Code, the International Urban Land Interface Code. As Mr. Espelin has explained, every 3 years we adopt the new codes. We did not make any changes this year as we did last sequence. So our municipal code, based on the fire code end of things, is remaining the same. And if you have any questions, I'm here to answer.
So basically, no changes.
No.
Can we do these all together, or do they
Let's
need
move this on then.
need separate motions?
This is the first one is first reading, set public hearing, the same as the other.
Well,
The second one is to adopt the findings. Can we adopt the findings and set the hearing for the other, or?
Yes, I would just move the staff recommendation that includes those two actions.
Okay.
And setting the public hearing.
If we could always do that, it would be so much easier. So would someone like to do that?
So I'll move Council Bill O 2013-05, adopt staff recommendations and findings. Actually, that would be Council Bill R-2013-27, reference the adoption of the 2013 California Fire Code, and complete first reading, set public hearing, and second reading for December 10th, 2013.
Second.
Okay. Anybody interested in talking it up? Don't hear it. Anybody opposed? Don't hear that either. So we will see you again on December 10. And that was A and B. Now we have to do 15, right?
Yeah, and I'll make the same motion that we set first reading for Council Bill O-2013-06, and then set the public hearing and second reading for December 10th, 2013. Adopting the 2013 International Wildland Urban Interface Code.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there further discussion? Is there opposition? Hearing none, it's approved. Item 16, meeting schedule for calendar year 2014. Madam Clerk.
Each year, we try to give you kind of a heads up as to the schedule for the following year. And because of staff reduction and somewhat lack of development, we have gone to one meeting per month, although we have held our schedule, so we can, if we need to have 2 meetings. We've held our schedule for the 2nd and 4th. There are some months where we meet on the 2nd Tuesday. In the summer months of July and August, we have gone to the 4th Tuesday to accommodate vacations and school schedules and so forth. There's a bit of a glitch in next year in that the November meeting would land on Veterans Day. The code requires us to meet the following day unless another date is designated. So that's the decision maker there as to what you want to do with
But that would be
with
November 12th then. That's the day
Yes.
after Veterans
Mhm.
Day.
But does that conflict with the IVDA and airport meeting?
That would be a
Third
Wednesday.
Yeah, we're usually done by 5 o'clock, so it shouldn't be an issue.
And we can't meet on the 4th because that's Thanksgiving week, Thanksgiving week.
Correct.
And
Wouldn't be
that's
on the
kind of an
4th
odd
Tuesday, that
time
would
to
be
meet for a
Thanksgiving
city
week.
council, 2 days before Thanksgiving.
I think the 12th is fine.
So that's a Wednesday? Okay.
Yes.
And we're going to assume that everything after July, Mr. Duper, Mr. Daly will be joining us.
I didn't catch that.
He's assuming that after July, you'll still be with us,
Oh, well, that's not up to me.
considering you're standing for reelection. Okay. Okay, so that seems acceptable. No, it's just receive and file?
Or to approve the schedule.
Okay. Motion to approve the schedule?
I go ahead and move that we approve the schedule.
Second.
Okay, discussion, opposition, hearing none on either. It's approved. Are there any reports of councilmen? Any reports of, oh, go ahead.
Oh, just my typical Apple plug. You know, the new iPads are out, and you don't have to go to the Apple store in Rancho Cucamonga. You can buy them at our bookstore, and it helps our local businesses. Thank you. No, actually, the Rancho Cucamonga store is closed at 9, but the bookstore does close at 6:30. So if you want to buy it in Loma Linda, you got to get there early. I don't know about the Mini, but I know the Air they do.
We don't get Channel 3 anymore. For those of you in attendance, buy early and often.
So I have to say that I saw Mr. Popescu waiting in line at about 3:30 in the morning for the last product that was released, so he's one of those.
He's a
early
He's
adopters.
a believer.
I actually walked into the campus store and bought it a few days later this time.
I'd like to ask if our city manager can give us an update. I've been out of town a lot, and I've been asked about updates on the, and I appreciate what we get by email updating us on the I-10 Tippecanoe. But I have questions on that and the progress and if we're on schedule for the completion. And then if you can also briefly comment on Stewart and Omnitrans. Because they've made progress. SBX.
Yes, yes. On the I-10 Tippecanoe interchange, they're scheduled to be completed by the end of the year, but it looked like we might have
Phase 1.
Phase 1. But we might have a little delay, maybe by a month. So, with the Stewart Street is scheduled to be completed by February of 2014, but there has been delay for the piling of the retaining wall. So we are looking at and pushing very hard to get it completed by April of 2014. At the same time, the contractor is not responsible for landscaping part on top of the bridge deck itself and surrounding the street. So I have been working with the university staff to make sure that we allow them to get on the bridge by March, early March, so that they can have 2 months to get the landscaping completed.
SBX.
SBX only for the city of Loma Linda. If you notice, they already put up the equipment at the bus stop. As a matter of fact, the one on Anderson already have the lighting, electrical is all hooked up, the camera, but they need to work on the roof itself and the glass panel at the bus stop. The park and ride at the southwest corner of Anderson and Redlands is at 90% complete. They did landscaping. They need to put up the parking lot lighting, so it's looked pretty good for the city portion. The also under construction starting today is the installation of an 8-inch water main down on the alleyway between Benton and Bel Air, just north of Barton Road. And starting tomorrow, Councilman Popescu, starting tomorrow, we're going to be working on the removal for the pavement rehabilitation at Park, Cottis, Lilac, Loma. You can see a lot of work going on by North Central neighborhood, yes. And it should take only about 2 weeks to grind. The first task is to remove the bad section of the pavement. The second task is to grind the existing pavement and then overlay with the new asphalt. Poplar Street from the bridge to Redlands Boulevard will get a new survey seal because the street it's got the improvement about 8 years ago, so it's ready for a survey seal, and they will get a new striping. Also, in addition to that, any broken curb, gutter, and sidewalk will be replaced at the same time. The funding for this project is a county CDBG funding.
Quick note, since we're talking about streets, I've noticed that, I'm trying to remember whether it's on Redlands Boulevard, and I can't recall whether it's just on the other side of Mountain View going west, and I believe that's where it's at. Just take a look at the manholes again. They're getting, it's really wobbly in there, and some of those need to be repaired again. It's getting kind of like you're off-roading. Thank you.
Go ahead if you're not.
I'll be happy. I took some pictures of the Stewart Street project. I'd be happy to email it to you. The graphic on the wall itself, we have one piece is completed, and starting next week, you will start seeing a big equipment with the piling. They would drill the hole and put the footing, start doing the footing for the retaining wall. So there'll be a lot of work going on.
And a question for our Mayor Sandbag representative. When does Phase 2 on the I-10 typically?
I'm glad you asked. I was about to comment on that.
Oh, good.
Phase 2 was scheduled to be let for contract bidding in April, but they unexpectedly cleared the land acquisition issues earlier, and they're sending it out to bid in January. So they anticipate finishing the entire project by about September of 15. It's about a year and a half after the bids are, after the contracts are let. So it's kind of on schedule, depending on which schedule you believed in the past, the optimistic or the pessimistic.
So, Jarb, you anticipate that by January, most of the construction that's over on the south side will be completed and all those barriers will be removed?
Yes, okay. Yes. Phase 1 is to widen the freeway eastbound off-ramp. They're starting adding 1 lane going eastbound on I-10 freeway, and also adding the off-ramp itself from 2 lane to 3. So.
And on the off-ramp, the eastbound off-ramp, the Phase 1 off-ramp.
Yes.
The wall or whatever it takes to cover those buildings and so forth that we used to have bushes in there and used to have the cloth on the fence and so forth. Is Sandbag doing anything to provide some privacy between the off-ramp and those buildings?
Not much, because just like the one we did at Mountain View, we asked for permission to put some green fabric on the fence, and they said no. Because they care, because a lot of times is when they get graffiti and they have to go out and clean it up. But even though we say we will, but they still have a hard time approving that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So I think that was a report of officers. You're done.
You just award 3 more contracts tonight, and I'm going to be really busy.
Yeah. Yeah, for a down economy, we're really moving in lots of stuff. Okay, so we will therefore adjourn the City Council and open the successor agency to the RDA meeting. Are there any items to be added or deleted?
No, sir.
Would the public like to speak on any items not on the agenda? No takers. The consent agenda.
I'll move.
Okay, there's two motions. I'll take one of them as a second.
I'll take a second.
And is there any discussion, any opposition? Hearing none of either. It's approved. Any reports of officers? Okay, we're adjourned. On to the Loma Linda Housing Authority. Are there any items to be added or deleted?
No, sir.
Would the public like to speak on any items not on the agenda?
Mayor, we may want to report there was a closed session to report.
Oh, well, I can go in any order I like. That's next. Closed session report.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The board was in closed session prior to the general meeting. On the two items listed, they were real property matters where there was a report and direction given to staff. There's no final action to report at this time on those two agenda items.
Okay, the consent calendar. Motion time.
I'll second it again.
Okay. Any discussion, any opposition? Hearing none, it's approved. Chair and member reports. None. Reports of officers.
None.
None. We're adjourned. Thank you all. Especially our new planning commissioner.